Scaphoid fractures and the surgeries that might follow are some of the hardest hand injuries that you could be experiencing. If you've had a scaphoid fracture, don't miss this video. I'm going to talk about the 5 major mistakes that people make that prolong or continue their pain after a scaphoid fracture. Number 1, a scaphoid fracture is very tough. It is not an easy injury, and so don't treat it like it is. It is something to be taken pretty serious, but it's never easy. So have some patience with it. It's one of the biggest mistakes. People think that this wrist injury is the same as other wrist injuries, and it's not. Scaphoids, the bone is hard to heal due to poor blood supply to it. It's one of the hardest bones to heal in the human body. And so number 1, it's not easy. Number 2, people tend to ignore this as a real problem. You're either trying to do it yourself, maybe it wasn't seen right away. Scaphoid fractures sometimes are not seen right away. It takes a few days before you can see it. So the first time you take x-rays, you might not see it, and so you have to go back. Remember, there's a follow-up that everyone tells you, go do that follow-up, and you're like, it's too expensive, it's too time consuming, I don't have time for it. But usually it's seen in the follow-up x-rays, and you have to take it in a certain way so that you can see it. And if your doctor suspects it, they're going to want to take a follow-up x-ray. If you have more pain, especially in the thumb, don't ignore it. Go do your follow-up. This is not the type of injury to try to do it yourself or to ignore the problem. Ask good questions. And I think that the mistake that I've seen in the past where people tend to have a very long drawn out recovery process, or maybe not fully recover at all, it's usually because it's been ignored or there's no follow-up behind it. I always tell my patients, you really need to understand your injury, because when you understand your injuries, you have better questions and you can have those types of conversations with either your hand surgeon or your hand therapist. Number 3, some of the biggest mistakes that I see is people getting rid of their splint too early. There is a process, or what we call a protocol, meaning because that bone has to have a certain amount of time to heal, you're going to wear something that immobilizes it. First, you have to wear the right splint. It should cover your thumb because the scaphoid sits right under your thumb. So it's got to wrap around your thumb. You can move the tip of your thumb, you can move your fingers, you just can't move the whole thumb, and it stops your wrist from moving. It's called a thumb spica splint. Funny enough, I had a story of a patient who watched a bunch of videos and created her own splint, and in creating it, she created it incorrectly and stopped her whole thumb from moving. It just developed into this whole big problem. You want to wear the right splint so your thumb's out a little bit, the tip is free, so you can still use your finger, you just can't use it a lot, so it's going to stop your wrist from moving. You want to wear that splint until your therapist or your doctor tells you can start to what we call wean off of it, and it's based on if your bone is healing. So it can take between 4 to 6 weeks. Sometimes it takes up to 8 weeks. And so it just depends. There's a lot of factors involved. I know that people tend to ask me a lot of questions. I have this, I have that. But if I don't know all your past medical history, I really can't provide the information. Age, health, all those things play a role in terms of how you're healing, the severity of the initial injury, like how bad is it broken and what part of the scaphoid is broken. It makes a really big difference in terms of how long you have to wear something that's really minor, or in someone who's young, or the fracture was really small and it was in a particular part that still has good blood supply. You might be in a splint that is 4 weeks. Sometimes it's bad enough, it's in the spot, they call it the proximal pole. So just in case you're curious, different parts of that scaphoid, this one particular part, the very end, does not have good blood supply. And if you broke that part, then you might be in that splint a lot longer, like 8 weeks. If you have had surgery, you might be in a splint between 6 to 8 weeks. These are really important questions to ask your surgeon, to talk to your certified hand therapist about, because the biggest mistake people make is trying to get rid of that splint. Nobody wants a splint. I can tell you that, right? I don't care how comfortable and how pretty it looks. Nobody wants to be in these types of splints and casts, right? But there is a purpose and a need for them. And so you have to find out how long you need to wear it, but don't try to get rid of it too early because that can cause you to go into a pain cycle. And once you're in this pain cycle, it's very hard to get out of. That's number 3. Number 4 is wearing the wrong splint, right? So hopefully this isn't your problem. I talked about it already. You need a thumb spica splint that stops your thumb from moving and stops your wrist from moving. If you're wearing a wrist support splint and your thumb's all over the place, 1, you might not have a scaphoid fracture, or 2, you're wearing the wrong splint. So just talk to the professionals that can help you. And then number 5, the last thing, the biggest mistake that I see people making is, because your cast is so long, because this is an injury that requires patience, people tend to be overly aggressive because they feel so stiff. Being really aggressive and pushing on it, causing more pain, is not helpful, right? There are ways in which to move your wrist. So after being immobilized for a really long time, whether you've had surgery or not had surgery to the scaphoid, you are going to feel stiff. That is completely normal. What you want to see over a period of time is, when you're working with your therapist, knowing how far and how much to push so that you are not in pain. I always say there's a line. So you're coming up to that line of being very uncomfortable, but don't cross that line into being painful. Once you cross that line into being painful, 1, it's hard to continue to push because our bodies, right? It doesn't like it. Number 2, you'll stop moving because it's so painful, and then when you go back, you're stiffer. So you're better providing what we call a low sustained pressure, just a little bit over a period of time, in order to be able to help you. So I'm going to give you an example of what that looks like. We all need what's called wrist extension. Wrist extension is what allows us to push ourselves off the chair, push ourselves out of the bed, push ourselves off of the floor, and everyone needs it. It's a really important function of your arm. There's a lot of consequences when you can't push off your wrist. So we want what's called wrist extension. You want wrist extension, and you want wrist flexion. Wrist flexion is a lot easier to get than wrist extension, just the way our body is made. So I like my wrist extension. I do it differently when I'm doing it to my patients. But if I'm teaching you how to do it, I like to put my fingers in between because it helps me control the metacarpals. These are the little bones of your hands, and then you can gently push down into this different version of what we would call a prayer stretch. So a prayer stretch is like this, and then you're gonna put your elbows on the table and slide all the way down so you look like you have a prayer, right? When your wrist is very stiff, you're gonna cheat. Your palms are gonna come off, your arm's gonna come off, your fingers gonna go in one direction or the other. When you put your fingers in between, you can have a little bit more control to push, right? I'm making it look easy because I don't have a scaphoid fracture, right? But when you do it, you wanna go nice and slow. You wanna go onto that brink of discomfort where you're feeling that stretch, but it's not painful. And you wanna hold it 10, 15 seconds, and then you can come off of it and go into the opposite direction. This is flexion, and then you can go into extension. Just go nice and slow, nice and light, and hold it. It's very repetitive. You have to do a lot over the day. So usually one of the things I tell my patients is do something every 2 hours, because it's going to keep your wrist loose. It's going to keep it not feeling so stiff all the time. If you're just being so aggressive to it and you're like kicking its butt, but you're only doing it once a day, you're so aggressive that the tissues rebound and like gets tight again. So you're better off going nice and slow. And one of the key things to know you're doing it right is it might be really uncomfortable, right? It might be really uncomfortable, but when you let it go, you're not as uncomfortable. It's not painful, right? If you are doing it and you're like, oh, I just want to push it a little bit, push it a little bit more. And how do you get too aggressive? Is when you let it go and it still hurts. That means you've been pushing on it too much. So just know the difference. And this is why, especially with scaphoid fractures, working with a therapist that knows how to move you and show you how to move is so important, so that you don't mess it up. But wrist extension is one of the most important movements to get. The other thing that I like to do with scaphoid fracture, or just anyone with a stiff wrist, is called a dart thrower's position, right? So you can hold onto a pen and it's gonna look like you're throwing the dart, right? You're just gonna bring it back and bring it forward, bring it back and bring it forward. It's a really gentle way of moving those wrist bones. It's very specific to moving those wrist bones. I know it looks easy. People are like, give me something harder. Less is more. That's my mantra this year. less is more. It's called a dart throwers, and because it's so easy, you can do a bunch of these. You can do 10, 15, 20 reps of these, just trying to pull it back a little bit further, trying to move it forward a little further, pretending like you're throwing a dart, but without doing it really quick, right? Those are just simple ways to start getting your range of motion. Once you start getting your range of motion, all the other stuff comes easier. Strengthening it, getting what we would call end range. The first step of getting everything loose can sometimes be the hardest part because you've been immobilized for so long, you're going to be very stiff. But the fifth mistake that I was talking about is being overly aggressive. And if you're overly aggressive, you're actually not going to make the gains that you're hoping to make. People usually come to me once they've already made these mistakes. They're usually painful. They're usually not sure why they're not getting results. So I see this quite often when people are not getting the results that they're hoping for, and might be a little bit too aggressive, but knowing the exercises and knowing how to do them correctly and in the order in which you need to do them to get the results of being able to move your wrists is going to be key. Again, my name is Huang. I'm an occupational therapist and certified hand therapist located here in Miami, Florida with hands-on therapy services. If you need my help, all the links are below, but if you don't live here, definitely find a certified hand therapist, someone with the experience to work with you so that you can get great results. But if you need me, all my links are below. If you like videos like this, like, subscribe, and do all the things, leave me comments because that also helps me what it is that you need so I can make more videos like this. All right, thanks for watching.